I've written tens of thousands of subject lines for hundreds of e-commerce brands, like for this furniture brand or this pet supplement brand, that we consistently get 50 to 60% open rates that lead to hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars per month in email revenue. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can do the same so you can get 50%, 60%, or even higher open rates using the exact strategies that I'm about to give you. But here's the thing. Email marketing in 2025 is nothing like it was even a year ago. Subscribers are drowning in promotional emails. They're skipping past boring subject lines without even a second thought. Just blasting discounts or limited time offer isn't going to cut it anymore. Meanwhile, Apple's privacy changes have updated how we track opens. Gmail's filtering has gotten way more aggressive than ever. But within these challenges lies massive opportunities for brands like yours to get ahead and stand out from your competitors. If you don't know who I am, my name is Luca. I'm the founder of Grow Pronto. We're an email and SMS agency that has driven a little over $100 million in email and SMS sales for over 75 e-commerce brands to date. The first thing that you need to understand about subject lines is that the segment matters more for open rates than the subject line does. If the quality of the list that you're sending to is poor, meaning they don't engage with your emails, then even the most creative and thoughtful subject line won't save your open rates. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Here's a brand that we started working with that previously had very low open rates despite having pretty good subject lines. The list that they were sending to was relatively unengaged, and that was the biggest determinant in terms of how low the open rates were. Versus over here, with this email, it had a mediocre subject line, but a very high open rate, and that's because of the segment that it was sent to, which was very engaged. This principle applies across every industry, no matter what brand you own. So before you spend a ton of time crafting the perfect subject line, if you want to increase your open rates, the first thing that you should do is fix the segment that you're sending to. If you don't know what segments you should be sending to, 90% of your campaigns should go to your engaged segments, and let's help you build that out in the next 15 seconds. I want you to go in Klaviyo, go down to list and segments, now create a new segment, name it engaged segment or something like that. And then for the conditions, I just want you to include has opened an email in the last 30 days. And then with an or connector, you want to also include has clicked an email in the last 30 days. And then an and connector, this person can receive email marketing. That's going to be your main engaged segment. And what I want you to do is now clone this segment and then switch out the time frame from 30 days to 45 days to 60 days to 90 days to 120. You get the gist. Now when you start sending your campaigns, I want you to focus on sending to your most engaged segment first. So maybe engaged 15 days or engage 30 days. Gauge the open rate. If it's above 45, 50%, then stay there and start sending to this segment. If it's really high, like 55 or 60% plus, you can start to broaden your engaged segment to maybe engage 60 days, engage 90 days, engage 180 days, whatever it might be. For our clients, we like to hover around engage 90 to engage 180 days if their list is super engaged. So the key takeaway here, if you're looking to increase your open rates, don't look at subject lines, look at your engaged segment first, and then we can optimize subject lines after that. Now that we've established the importance of sending to the right audience, let's talk about what makes people actually click on your emails. The psychology behind high converting subject lines typically comes down to three key things. That's going to be your pattern interruption, curiosity gaps, and trust signals. Pattern interruption is about making your email stand out of all the emails that they have in their inbox right now. What makes your subject line actually stand out from all the other 50 emails that they got this morning, from all the other brands that they subscribe to? Look at all these boring subject lines. You can just see them on screen now versus look at this subject line over here. It's way more intriguing and it actually catches your attention to the point where you might actually click it. The second principle is going to be the curiosity gap. As the name suggests, this is when your subject lines create curiosity, and you basically create an itch in the customer's mind, so they have to click the email in order to find out what you're talking about. For example, here's a great example up on screen now of a curiosity invoking subject line, and you can see why someone might want to click them and actually see what's inside the email. The third principle is trust. If the subject line feels authentic for your brand and mimics the same voice and tone and personality that your brand is known for, then people are likely going to click on it. For example, here's some boring subject lines that look like they've been written by AI versus these subject lines that are in line with their brand's voice and are actually going to be well received by their audience. And also, just to stay in line with the trust principle, if you keep spamming a bunch of discounts to your list, 20% off, 30% off, whatever it may be, then you're going to erode trust with your audience over time. When you provide your customers with value in your subject lines, they're going to be much more inclined to click it, like this one, that would actually have use for someone like me if I was subscribed to a brand like this, versus another boring subject line like this that I wouldn't be interested in. So if you can always provide value in your subject lines as well, you're going to increase the chances of your subscribers actually clicking your emails and engaging with them. The next thing that I want to talk about is subject line length. You could spend a bunch of time trying to fit all the perfect information into your subject line, but if it's too long, it's not even going to get read. Here's the thing. Most people open their emails on their phones, and when they read their emails on their phones in Gmail, let's just say, if your subject line is super long, it's going to get cut off on their phone. So they're not going to be able to read the entire subject line. Instead, focus on making your subject lines short, punchy, and actually interesting, and people will actually be able to understand whatever message you're trying to portray in your subject line, and they might be interested in clicking on it. The rule of thumb that I want you to remember, the key takeaway here, is that your subject lines and preview text, which we'll talk about shortly, should be a maximum of about 40 characters. If you can follow this, you can make sure that your subject lines are going to be shown on everyone's phone and are not going to get cut off like this one. So here are a few bad examples and here are a few good examples. The next thing that I want you to focus on is not actually the subject line. It's going to be the preview text. If you're unfamiliar with what I mean by the preview text, it is that extra subject line that is just below your subject line. So you might see it here where we highlighted it on screen when you get a notification from an email, or you might see it right here under your subject line in Gmail, for example. I want you to think of your preview text as your second subject line. So while you want to focus on making your subject line great, you should also focus the same amount of attention on your preview text as well. A lot of brands completely ignore their preview text and it automatically fills with some links in the email or view in browser or something like that. Please don't be one of these brands. It doesn't look good at all. It's a massive opportunity when you can actually use your preview text to build on the subject line to increase the chances of someone opening your email. So your preview text piggybacks on your subject line or provide more detail for whatever it is. So for example, if you have a Labor Day sale, I know that time of year is coming up when I'm recording this, you might have your subject line as, let's just say, Labor Day sale on now. Your subject line could include more detail on the sale that might increase the chances of someone opening. For example, it might mention the offer, 20% off, blah, blah, blah. As a customer, I might not care that you're having a Labor Day sale, but if I see the 20% off, that might be the reel that hooks me in to get me to actually click on the email. So on screen now, we'll throw up some examples of subject lines with preview text that go alongside them to make them even better. And if you're super serious about improving your brand subject lines, I've got a free guide in the description that goes over everything you're going to need to know about subject lines and copywriting for e-commerce brands just like yours. Plus, it's going to come with 3 free bonuses that you're not going to want to miss. Number 1, a custom GPT that's going to write subject lines for your brand using the formulas and frameworks that we used in this video. Number 2, a subject line swipe file of over 100 of some of the best subject lines that I've seen personally in e-commerce. And finally, number 3, a subject line checklist that you can use before sending out every email campaign to make sure that your subject lines are going to be perfect before you send it out. So now that you understand a little bit more about subject lines, let's look at some proven formulas that I've personally used to drive over $100 million in email and SMS sales for our clients. So the first one, like we mentioned before, is just a curiosity gap. Here's an example on screen now. This is great because it creates like an itch in the customer's mind, feel like they have to scratch it by opening this email. Like we said before, here's an example of a pattern interrupt subject line. See how it's all caps? As you can see here, obviously the subject line looks different than the most of them in your inbox currently. Now I would avoid using all caps. We'll talk more about spam trigger filters later in this video, but this is a good subject line from Abercrombie here. Using social proof in your subject line, here's a good one as well. Making it personalized. For example, here's one from Adidas. I purchased some slides from them. You can't see them. I'm wearing them right now. But anyways, I got this email from Adidas. It says, how's your new gear? Obviously, it's not the most personalized subject line in the world, but it did make me clue in that this is going to be about my purchase. Including numbers in your subject lines. It's an old copywriting trick. Anyone who understands copywriting pretty well will understand that including numbers in any form of copy, particularly subject lines as well, or headlines, is going to make people clue in and want to see what's in the email. So your subject line might be something like the 7 daily tips that so-and-so does to achieve perfect skin, or you could include numbers in the form of a sale like this, as we have an example from Amazon over here. You can include urgency in your subject lines. Those always work well. Here are some urgency focused subject lines. If your brand is announcing something that's new, rivals, brand announcement, whatever it might be, include that in the subject line of your emails. It's going to be way more interesting than what most people can come up with on their own. Problem solver subject line formula. This is a great one, especially if your product solves a particular pain point. For example, if you're in skincare, supplements, or anything else that's solving a direct problem that people have. Okay, so those are a bunch of subject line formulas that you can use that I've personally tried and tested. So you can go ahead and implement them. They all work. Everyone wants to have great subject lines that gets their customers to open their emails. But there are some things that you really shouldn't be doing that can stop your email from being shown to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And that's because of your email being sent to spam. Your subject lines might catch someone's attention if you have 30% off, a bunch of alarm emojis in them, a bunch of exclamation marks, all caps, etc. That's going to stand out in someone's inbox, but you got to put yourself in the shoes of email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook, whose main job is to protect their users from being scammed by someone on their platform. So that's why spam filters do exist. And if your subject lines are anything like the ones I just described, then you're likely going to be put in spam, which is going to hurt your email reputation, lower your open rates, and prevents future emails from you from being shown to other people on your list. So here are a few things that you should definitely watch out for when creating your subject lines, and just make sure you're not doing these because otherwise there's a higher chance that you're going to land in spam. Number 1, free. Guarantee, no risk. Any form of extreme urgency likely isn't going to do well either. Risk-free, you get the deal. If you're going to use these words, try to use them sparingly and don't make the subject line look like a spammer or a scammer. Next, try to use all caps sparingly. Don't have your entire subject line have all caps. Instead, maybe just try to use it on a couple words, emphasize important parts of your email, and that will likely get the attention of someone in their inbox. Next, don't spam a bunch of exclamation points at the end of your subject lines. This does not look good to email providers either. In terms of emojis, same thing goes with emojis. Don't include too many emojis in your subject line. Instead, just try to keep your subject line or preview text to 1 or 2 emojis tops. If you can do those things that I just mentioned, you can increase the chances of your email not landing in spam. Okay, now you know how to create subject lines. Now we need to look at how to optimize them and improve them. And one of the best ways to do that is to split test them. So here's how you can split test your subject lines. The first thing that I want you to do is to not make minuscule changes in the subject lines that you're split testing. For example, look at the subject line over here and this variation of that subject line over here. They're very similar. There's no point in split testing these. It makes no sense. Instead, try to create more variation in your subject lines so they look vastly different like these two. So Klaviyo by default actually gives you suggestions for subject line split tests. So for example, some of the ones that they recommend are personalization versus no personalization. So you can maybe test this in a post-purchase email. Let's say it's important for your customers to actually understand how to use the products. For example, if you're Athletic Greens, people need to know when, how, and how often to take the supplement in order to get the best results. So they might have an email explaining how and when to take it. If it's crucial that your customers actually open this email, maybe split test the subject line having their first name inside of it versus the subject line without their first name. Just giving you an idea. Another good split test for subject lines are short versus long subject lines. Here's an example of a short one, and here's an example of a longer one. Question versus statement subject lines, another good one to test. And then including emojis or no emojis. Just see what works best for your brand. Ultimately, a lot of these subject line tests aren't going to make any needle moving results for you, but if you can start to get a grasp on what works best for your brand by doing a lot of these small ones, you'll come to some good conclusions that you can use repeatedly for all your email campaigns, flows, etc., and really tighten up your email system. Now that you know how to split test your subject lines, let's look at some of the most common mistakes that most brands make so you can avoid these. Number 1, inconsistent sending patterns. This actually has nothing to do with your subject line, but if you don't send emails frequently, and they're going to forget why they signed up in the first place. So chances are, if you're not emailing them enough and they're only getting hit up by other brands, then your brand is going to get forgotten about, and one subject line once in a while is not going to get their attention. Number 2, subject line fatigue. There's nothing worse than getting blasted with a bunch of discounts from the same brand over and over again. It just gets repetitive, and if you're not interested, you're going to unsubscribe. This is just one form of subject line fatigue, but in general, you want to make sure that your subject lines are new and exciting and aren't always about the same things. Otherwise, it's going to get boring and people aren't going to click. Number 3, congruence between your subject line and your email content. Make sure your subject line is in line with the content of your email. If the two are disjointed, people are going to click the email for one reason and then look at your email and it's not going to be that same reason why they clicked. And then it opens you up to them marking you as spam or unsubscribing. This is just basically clickbaiting in your subject lines is what I'm trying to say. Mistake number 4, once again, ignoring mobile optimization. Like I said previously, ignoring the mobile text limit for your subject lines so they're not cut off like this, but instead read fully like this. And mistake number 5, not focusing on the segment before your subject line. Like I mentioned, you can have the best subject line in the world, but if the segment that you're sending to is completely unengaged, then no one's going to open your email in the first place. And it's going to do more harm than good because your email is going to land in spam. It's going to lower your domain reputation to Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, or whatever email service provider. So if you can implement even just one thing that I mentioned in this video, your brand subject lines are going to get better immediately and are going to consistently improve over time. Now, subject lines are going to be undoubtedly a great way to engage better with your subscribers, but none of that matters if you don't know how to create good email content. If you want to learn how to craft great email campaigns and great email content for your brand, watch this next video.